let's discuss potty training, obviously. Um, Main struggles and trying to get down to the bottom of things. You are welcome to ask if you are here live. You can type in any questions that you have in the bottom, and I will see if I can answer them for you as I go along. So, okay. So, main thing with which I say over and over, but the biggest thing that everyone needs to understand is that all potty training requires management, which means we do everything we can to prevent the dog from being able to have potty accidents. So we call this setting the dog up for success. And I talk about this in all areas of my dog training, not just potty training, because it's very important. If you don't set your dog up to succeed, then we're going to kind of go in circles. So for potty training, that would mean that we have eagle eyes on them if and when they are out in the house, especially for younger puppies that are inclined to have more frequent accidents. If we cannot supervise or we're busy or whatever life hands us, of course, then we should have a space where the puppy can or dog can go where they can hold it and not have an accident. I love crates, but that is not the only thing that you have to use. You can use an X pen if that works, if your dog will hold it in the X pen and not have an accident. Or if you have an X pen and you have a grass potty box, you can use that and your dog can go in there because then they can go to the bathroom in an appropriate location in their potty box. Or, some people use gates in a kitchen or something. If you do that and your dog holds it and does not have an accident in the kitchen, then you can utilize that. You need some area that you can put your dog in that they can hold it because there's going to be times when you're going to have to do that, especially if you have a puppy or a new dog that's having frequent accidents. And on that note, I also say this a lot, and a lot of people do this, and a lot of people don't, and some people just don't know this. But you do have to take into account that it could be a medical problem and it's just not obvious. I have a lot of people that when I bring that up, they get a little defensive. They're like, oh, we were just at the vet last week, or oh, well, she's not doing anything, she's fine. And I'm like, look, I'm not accusing you of anything. The thing is, some UTIs or anything that could cause a dog to continually have potty accidents are just really, sometimes they're almost symptom free, or they seem to be. And so the only way to know is to go to the vet and find out. And you're going to go in circles forever. Not only that, but if your dog does have a medical issue, we do obviously need to get it under control because it can be a problem if it's not treated. But mainly, I advise that you go to the vet if you're really banging your head against the wall and you're having problems and a lot of accidents, and or you're having sudden accidents and they're out of character for your dog, like they hadn't been having accidents before and now they are, definitely warrants a vet visit. Okay. Anything out of character or new behavior that involves potty accidents that weren't happening before should always be started with a vet visit to rule out anything. So remember that. And then, like I said, supervision. Okay, a lot of times, especially with puppies, because puppies are energetic, so we don't feel good confining them all the time, and so they go potty outside. Someone comes back inside. They kind of don't pay attention as closely as they should, and then they turn around and the dog's had another accident. So on that note, remember, it's always important, especially with puppies. You don't really have to do this with adult dogs, but puppies often, especially under 5 months of age, sometimes under 6 months of age, puppies often go to the restroom more than once. It's like they get distracted or they just don't empty out really well the first time. Even though they may look like they're, putting a lot out, they may still have to go to the bathroom again. Actually, so I have dogs that come to my house for training, and I had a dog before Christmas, and without fail, and he was 5.5 months old, so he was, he's a Springer Spaniel, so he was like 25 pounds, and he wasn't tiny, maybe 30, and he peed twice no matter what. So I always knew that I had to stand outside with him. He would pee, and he'd pee a lot, and then he'd sniff all around the yard, and he'd get a toy and he'd play by himself in the yard, and I just stood there, and then he always was like, oh yeah, I think I'm gonna pee again, and he'd pee again. So I always had to make sure that I stood out there long enough that he could do his 2 pee breaks, and then he would also poop. And I had to stay out there for quite a while before he realized that, oh yeah, I think I need to poop. So it was just a matter of being patient and just waiting. Now, let's say sometimes you're like, I got to get the dog to potty, but I got to go somewhere. So I don't have time to stand out there. And I don't mean when I say stand out there and wait a little bit, don't do it for 45 minutes or anything crazy like that. an extra 10 or 15 minutes, really at most. But if you're really short on time, then back it up. Don't take the potty break 5 minutes before you have to go. Take it 15 minutes before you have to go. Take the dog out, give them a minute if they don't do it. If they don't empty out, or you think, well, he peed once, but he may need to pee again, take him back inside and put him in that area, that safe area, a crate, an X pen, behind a gate, wherever the area is that the dog will hold it and will not have accidents. You can also tether the dog to you if you want. Some people just, then what I mean by that is you put a leash on the dog and you tie the leash around your waist, or you just hang on to it. And that way the dog's going everywhere with you in the house, so you always know where it is. Wait a few minutes, and then you're like, okay, I need you to go take them back out, see if they'll go back outside and go to the bathroom and relieve themselves. And that's really kind of the solution. If you have a dog that you're taking out and then they come back in and go to the bathroom, whether they've gone outside when you did take them out or they don't at all, that's really the process that you're going to use. You're going to give them about 10 or 15 minutes, no matter what they do. If you know that the habit is that they come in and very frequently go and have a potty accident indoors, you need to immediately put them in their little safe area, their crate, their X pen behind the gate, wherever it is that they'll hold it. Okay, so I'm going to say crate just from here on out, so I don't have to list all those things. For the sake of the video, I'm going to just say put them in their crate. That may be a different space for you, but it has to be somewhere where they will not have an accident. Okay, so you'll come in, you'll put them in the crate, you'll leave them in there for 5 or 10 minutes, then you'll try again and you'll see if they'll empty out. Once they empty out, then it's like, okay, now you can hang out in the house with me. Once they're hanging out, especially with puppies under 5 months of age, it's important that you watch them very closely. And that means if, like, let's say example, you're sitting on your computer and the puppy's here, it needs to be blocked in that, like, this is my kitchen. When I have puppies here, doors closed, gates are on the end of the kitchen, so the dog is only confined to the kitchen. I can easily see all angles of my kitchen when I look like this, so I can always see what the dog is doing. So if you have a big kitchen or an area where you are and they could go around a corner and have an accident, then do something to prevent them from being able to go around that corner. Keep them tethered to you, something where you have really, really sharp supervision. And then with a young puppy, make sure that during that time when you're busy, if you have to, set a timer. Then about, let's say puppies under 4 months, I would set a timer for 20 minutes. Especially if you're having frequent accidents. If you know that your puppy can go longer than 20 minutes, then I would set it for 30 or 45 minutes. I always start really conservatively though. I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and set it for 30 minutes, even though you can go 45. And then you say, oh, I've been doing my email for 30 minutes. Oh, he probably has to go to the bathroom. Hey, let's go out. And you take them out to have a potty break. And this should be the case where you're taking your puppy out to do super frequent potty breaks, because the more potty breaks you give your dog, the more opportunities you give him to have potty breaks where he should and be successful, and the less opportunity he has to have an accident in the house. I always say, don't give them an opportunity to have an accident. And the best way to do that is to do really frequent potty breaks and or utilize that crate or that space where they can go and relax and hold it. For puppies, they also need a lot of naps during the day because puppies need a lot of sleep. So really you should have a routine of the dog wakes, you go straight to the potty, you do some play, you do some training, you maybe do some more play, you do a potty break, you go take a nap. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. The time that each of those things happen will slowly increase to where it's longer and longer. Then I do some where it's not just total interaction with the puppy all that time. I also do some where the puppy has to learn to chill out and relax next to me. So I give the puppy a chew bone or something wonderful for them to do that is proactive for them, but good for a puppy, but that's relaxing. And they can lay next to me and then I can watch them very closely while they're doing that. But they're also learning to be calm and relaxed while I'm busy, which is equally as important, because otherwise you'll have a puppy that's bugging you all the time if you're always interacting with them. But if you have a bored puppy, then you can have a mix mash of different behaviors happen. But if you keep this really neat schedule like that, then potty accidents really shouldn't happen. And also you will see that your dog will start to learn that, oh, we always go out here. That's where you'll start to teach your dog over time that he will learn to let you know when he has to go, because he knows the pattern is we go to this door, we go out this door, I go out here and I go to the bathroom. So once that pattern is really set in his head, he has that muscle memory of how that goes, he will start to teach you what his signal is that he has to go. Okay, so on dogs signaling and telling you they have to go, I used to be really strong um, on teaching people how to teach their dogs to ring the bell, and I'm not against that. The reason I don't tell people to do that now is because what happens is they teach a puppy to ring a bell, or they leave the bell, and then unfortunately, we have the expectation that we're going to wait for this puppy to ring that bell, and then we take them out. And so then our potty breaks that we initiate become few and far between, or the space between them becomes too long, and then you have the possibility of a very high possibility of more accidents happening because the puppy is not ready yet or understanding just yet that they need to signal to go out. I just wait over time and the puppy will learn to signal. And you don't have to do a bell. Like I've never actually bell trained any of my own personal dogs, to be honest with you. Um, and my dogs, like my beagle, she either stands in front of the back door, and yes, I have a beagle that does not make a sound. It's very odd, but she's the quietest. She's the quietest dog ever. Not even just for a beagle, but for a dog, she does not. She does not. She'll stand in front of the door until someone notices her. Which our back door, it's we don't have a huge house, so usually wherever you are in the house, you can see that she's standing there. Um, and that's her signal. So someone has to see her standing there. Or she will come to me and just sit and do this longing stare. And I've learned, okay, that means she has to go to the bathroom. So you will learn what your dog's doing. Some dogs are very obvious. Some dogs will jump on the door. Some dogs will scratch it. Some dogs may bark at the door. But it's more common, I think, that dogs aren't incredibly vocal about it. Unless they become vocal and then they notice that works, then they'll learn to be vocal about needing to go out, which is fine if that's what you want, if that's the only time they're really vocal. But anyway, all that to say is your dog's going to pick their own signal. You can train them to ring a bell, but you want potty training to be pretty reliable before you start to rely on your dog using that bell to tell you. So even if you have a dog that's pretty good at ringing the bell, you still need to initiate nearly all of your potty breaks until the dog's around 8 or 9, 10 months of age, okay, to be certain that, or if you have a dog that age that's not potty trained, it needs to be longer, okay? But you need to be really, really certain that your dog understands potty goes outside and they can hold it inside and wait until you give that potty break. So once your dog is able to hold it and not have accidents, then you can become a little more lax and try to rely more on your dog signaling themselves. Now, in between all of this, your dog may signal every now and again and may use that bell to tell you to go out. And that's great. That's great. But just don't become reliant on it, because if you do and you start to have accidents, it probably means that the dog just still isn't real clear on doing that every time to let you know it needs to go out. Okay, so I would still recommend that you initiate the potty breaks. And while doing potty breaks with a young puppy, stand outside with the puppy. I know right now I'm in Texas, so unfortunately, for some of you in the north, you don't have the luxury of never living in snow. So I don't know what it's like to potty train a dog in the snow. So I know it's a pain in the neck to stand out there when it's 30 below, to say the least, right? But if you have a puppy, you really need to be outside or wherever it is that you want the puppy to continually potty, so that you can watch it happen, you can reinforce it when it happens, and you can stand out there a little longer and see if it has to happen again. Okay, so in other words, don't just open the door and let the dog go out and say, hey, have a good potty break, let me know when you're done. You really need to, with a puppy, especially under 6 months of age, or if you have an older dog that you're here because that older dog is still not reliably potty trained, then you need to go back to puppy 101 and do those things as well until you get a little more reliable with that. So, and on that note, just a side note, if you do have really bad weather, you have a lot of rain, you have a lot of mud, or now if you have a lot of snow, that's really a big pain. If you have a yard that you can manipulate, meaning you're not having to put a leash on your dog and walk around in a public space to have your dog go to the bathroom, you can get hay, probably from a feed store, or if you're really desperate, you can actually get the feeding hay at the pet store that you're supposed to feed a rabbit for food. That'd be a lot more expensive, but you could get hay. You could even probably get mulch. I wouldn't really suggest mulch only because puppies could start to eat it. But anything, and you can spread it, like scrape away a big space on the snow, and sprinkle that hay. And so you have an area where the dog, the puppy, can go to the bathroom without having to step in the snow, and and hopefully that helps. Also, some people, what they'll do is they'll scrape an area away, and then lay a tarp down or a big piece of plywood, and then if it snows overnight or whatever, you can go in, you can lift that plywood up or lift up that tarp, and that area is nice and dry, or is at least isn't covered in snow, and the puppy can go in that area too. So you can make a potty area that's kind of saved from the snow, if you will. The straw works great, except if you have to lay out straw and then it snows, you're going to have straw covered in snow. So you may have to lay something on top of the straw if you do that, so that it won't get snowed on again. But anyway, so that's a little side note on that for those that have to do this in the snow. I know that's a pain. Now, obviously, that's not really helpful if you don't have a yard that you can manipulate in a way like that. But I don't know. You could, if you have an area like an apartment, you could try to throw a tarp out there and see if anyone cares and say, hey, yo, I'm going to make a potty area over here. I'm sure other apartment dwellers would be pleased that you did that, because everyone else could use it too. But I don't know if that's possible. So you could try it. But anyway, so those are some of the top tips that you want to use. Really, if you have a young puppy, it's just a lot of patience. This is a process, and it is a lot of patience. I know it can be a pain. It's a matter of, like I said, really frequent potty breaks for really young puppies. When they're under 3 months of age. So if you have an 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-week-old puppy, any of those ages, 12 weeks and under, you probably should start going out every 20 to 30 minutes. Because like I said, that's just going to help prevent accidents from happening. And then, make sure your supervision's super strong. Your puppy at that age really physiologically does not have the ability to hold it for very long. They just are not physically able to do it. So they can't do it if they have to go a long distance to get to the potty. They may have an accident on the way there because their body just can't do it, especially if it's a really small puppy, a small breed. The smaller, the worse it is on that, because they obviously have smaller bladders, and they just can't hold it as long. So it's really just patience and time for that, and maturity. And then they're able to physically hold it a little longer and longer. So if anyone has any questions, you can, even if you're not here live, you can ask questions below in the comment section, and I can answer them for you. Hopefully I did touch on most of the top topics. I will probably have a live again sometime in the next month or two. If there's a specific topic that you really would like covered in the live, let me know, and I can see about covering that. Okay. Hopefully these tips were helpful. Please do make sure that you get through all the guides, because there's a bunch of info in there. And even if you have a dog that's older, some of the guides, if you're going through them, you're thinking these don't apply to me, a lot of them are going to apply to you anyway. That's why I say go through the guides. And I mean every guide, no matter how old your dog is. If you're in this group and you need help, you're going to probably be doing the things that I'm suggesting to puppy owners, because you're going to kind of have to go back to square one. You probably won't have to do it for as long, and you won't have to do it as strictly, maybe, because your dog is physically able to do some things that really young puppies aren't. But still, the basics and the principles are going to all be the same if you're struggling with potty training with an older dog. So make sure that you go through every one of those guides and you really read through all of them, because there's a bunch. You can also scroll through the page and look at all the info that I've posted. But most of the info I've posted on the page are also put in the guides. And remember, if you don't know where the guides are, in your welcome post that I tagged you in, I had pictures of where the guides are, and they are pinned at the top of the page as well. So if you have any questions related to this video or whatever it is, please do let me know, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for coming.